Hi, folks. This is Jeff Dunetz. It's Thursday, and it's the Mark Schaftlein Report, and I'm hosting again this week. And before we get into the show, there are a couple of things I got to talk about. Number one, I have friends telling me it was a lousy week. How can you call it a lousy week when Dr. Fauci resigns? It was a wonderful week. You know, and the other great thing that happened is the DOJ turned in the redacted report of why they went to Trump's house, and I got a copy of it. Okay, now here's the redacted report, and I don't know if you could see this, but the only words I can read is Trump. Okay, so now you know what why the DOJ went after Donald Trump, because of his last name. Today's guest, you know, when they asked me to host, I said, get me the greatest guest you can get. And my guest, if you've heard of him, his name is Mark Schaftlein. Great guy. And I got to tell you a secret. The reason why he's letting me host, and he doesn't want me to tell you, but my mother of blessed memory came into his bed while he was sleeping and said, if you don't like Jeff host, I'm going to have Nancy Pelosi come into your bedroom every night. And all of a sudden, I'm hosting. I don't want to say that was right, but Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jeffrey, thanks for hosting today. It's much appreciated. I'm happy to be joining you again from my hometown, Louisville, Kentucky, where my brother is making good improvement. After his heart attack a week ago, I'm happy to be your guest today. I'm looking forward to the show today.
So, Mike, you're in Kentucky?
Louisville, Kentucky. That's my hometown. Yes, sir.
Now, is Rand Paul showing up at your house and asking questions?
You know, it's really interesting. We have two unique senators here in Kentucky. Rand Paul, who really, to borrow on your lead-in, was Fauci's just antichrist. I mean, Fauci, I don't think he's going to be invited to Rand Paul events, and certainly Rand Paul is not going to be invited to Fauci's retirement party. And then, of course, we have the Dean of the Senate, Mitch McConnell. Mitch has served in the Senate. I think he's on his sixth term, maybe seventh term, an institution here in the state and in Congress. So we have quite a diverse group of senators representing the state.
Well, I can't wait till Rand Paul questions Fauci again. That's entertainment television.
But let me ask you,
what?
It's probably going to happen because although Fauci's retiring, if the Republicans take back control of Congress, they will have investigative authority, and they certainly can bring him forward to testify.
I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoy that television. But let me ask you something. Then you know this better than anyone. Actually, before I started guesting on your show, one of the last things I said to one of my friends, Mitch McConnell is a really good leader. You have him, all he's doing is getting all these judges, and no one else can get them. And all of a sudden, the president at the time, and now the probable candidate, says he doesn't like him. As a matter of fact, today he said, I want him gone now. What's going on?
I think Trump is just completely bass-ass backwards on this one. And it's a complete, what I call, dereliction of duty. Mitch McConnell's been an outstanding United States senator. He, more than anyone else, shepherded through those three Supreme Court nominees, one of which, again, came through close to the election. It was Mitch McConnell who thwarted Merrick Garland from even getting a hearing when Barack Obama nominated him after Antonin Scalia passed away. It's Mitch McConnell who got all those judges approved. And countless other things that McConnell got through the Trump tax cuts. And again, when you're in the minority, okay, people can yell and scream about delay tactics and we want to do this. But the fact of the matter is, when you're the minority party in the United States Senate, your power is limited. Were they able to thwart certain things because of relationships and keep the filibuster in place? Yes. Were a lot of Democratic initiatives that required 60 votes thrown by the wayside? Yes. The bill that got passed, as I call it, the Inflation Enhancement Act, which they call the Inflation Reduction Act, that is 1/10 the size of the Build Back Better bill that Biden and the Democrats tried to push through, which McConnell fought against. Listen, I like President Trump, but in this case, he's just wrong. Trump has a tendency, when you're doing right by Trump, he praises you. If you're ever on the wrong side, you're like cannon fodder, like the Russian soldiers in Ukraine. He just discards you. He even came out and attacked McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, who, oh, by the way, served in his cabinet. So, no, I think what Trump is doing typifies why half the Republican Party can't stand Trump, because he goes out of his way to create negative comments about Republicans. I'm of the old school that Ronald Reagan, thou shalt not talk ill about a fellow Republican. Well, Trump does this crap all the time. I think it does nobody any good. Mitch McConnell has a solid base of support in the Senate, and he's going nowhere. And frankly, Trump looks like a fool when he does stuff like this.
You know, the Republicans have a reputation of fighting within each other, circular firing squad, even more than the Democrats. And I got to tell you something. He's encouraging it. He's making it, let's fight. And I got to tell you something. To move ahead for the party, not him, got to be looking at the future, not at the back, because people are, they don't like the back. Not only just Biden, but they don't like, they don't remember what Trump did. They just know they don't have food on the table.
Part of the problem we have right now, and this is classic Trump, whether it's good publicity or bad publicity, Trump wants this topic always to be about Trump. And I got news for you. This is not helping the Republican Party. Every Republican running for office should be talking about what the inflation rate is right now. They revised upward the numbers last month. It was from 8.7 to 8.9. That's a slight downtick from the 9.1 that we peaked in June. They should be talking about crime in this, and crime's not just in the blue cities, it's everywhere. As some of these blue cities change their bail laws to let criminals out without.
I don't know if you saw it, because there was a video of New York last week where somebody cold cocked this old man who now
been all over. Yeah,
they should show that. Hey guys, this is what you voted for.
That's exactly right. So if you want high gas prices, high inflation, 2 million people coming across the border, crime in the streets, lack of security, woke education, vote Democrat. But while all the topic is on Trump, bear in mind, when that bill passed, the Inflation Enhancement Act, or as Democrats call it, the Inflation Reduction Act, which will do nothing to reduce inflation, 36% of Americans thought it would make their lives worse. 35% thought it would have no effect. And a small 30-something% thought it would help. That's not the recipe for success. And yet, the media, which is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, they try to continue to keep Trump in the news because realistically, Trump candidates won in primaries. The acid test is going to be, can we win in the general election? These things tend to tighten, Jeffrey, as we get closer to election. And ultimately, economic issues will rule the day. But for right now, when we're still in August, Trump continues to dominate the spotlight, and it is not helping the Republican Party.
And they have the economic advantage if they use it.
Yes, no
That's
question
the bad
about
part.
It. Yes.
So now talking about the coming election, I've been reading, and I think both ways, but a lot of people are saying the red wave is becoming a red ripple, that the big transfer of power that everyone's saying is not going to happen, that the Republicans might get the 8 or 9 seats in the House to give them the advantage. They're going to lose the Senate, and it's not going to be much of a difference. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not buying that argument at all. I firmly believe that the Republicans will win the House of Representatives you and I have had this conversation many times, and my number hasn't changed. I've said at the end of the day, we're going to have somewhere between a 10 and 20 seat advantage in the House of Representatives. That's a lot less than a lot of prognosticators who are saying, no, Mark, it's going to be 25 to 50 seats. I hope they're right, and I hope I'm wrong. But realistically, given the way the House is configured in the districts and the swing districts, my expectation is still a 10 to 20 seat advantage. In the United States Senate, I think it could go either way. Right now, we're behind about 4 points in Pennsylvania. We're behind 2 points in Georgia. We're behind a couple points in Wisconsin. Adam Laxalt is up a couple points in Nevada. Arizona, flip a coin, it's very close. This is August. As we get closer to October, November, when people start to vote, bear in mind, Democrats make up about 33% of the electorate, Republicans about 30%. Independents make up the balance. And this year, I really believe independents will sway this election. They're going to make the decision. A lot of the suburban housewives, the soccer moms, if you will, they're ticked off about crime. They are sick and tired of it. They're sick and tired of having to teach their kids that no, men can't have babies, and that they don't necessarily. Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? And they don't want men participating in women's sport. I mean, these issues will come to the forefront. Democrats think they have this gigantic advantage on the abortion issue. I think it's a minimal advantage because people on the left may be a little more fervent, people on the right, but ultimately people vote their pocketbook. And if we're sitting here next month with 7% inflation, even if it's a high 6 number, yeah, it may be coming down, but guess what? If your wages aren't keeping up with it, you're falling behind. And Jeffrey, 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck and have only a small amount or no savings. So, every time they go to the grocery store and they see these grocery prices, rent prices are not going down, they're going up. Wages are holding pretty steady, going up, but they're not keeping up with inflation. So I think at the end of the day, bear in mind, the media is trying to put this narrative out there. They are the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. And I don't know which way the Senate's going to go. Mitch McConnell said it could go either way.
Yeah, he said 50.
Could go either, and I think that's true. The House, I still firmly believe Republicans take the House.
Well, my recommendation is to ignore the polls. I still remember in 2012, Mitt Romney was going to be the president. And in 2016, Hillary Clinton was going to be the president. And I'm talking election day.
Yeah,
so
98% chance.
You just can't worry about it. You just got to support your candidate and do what you can to help him win or her win.
And I think you have to do everything you can as a party to get out the vote, make sure that your constituents get to the polls. Democrats are pretty good at that. Now, we'll see in a midterm election if that happens. But I'm telling you something, this race, look, by definition, McConnell's right, it's a 50-50 country. Most turnout models have Republican enthusiasm about 6 points higher than Democrats. Could that be the difference? It could be. But these elections are tight in this country. So to take anything for granted and not vote, that's a fool's errand.
That's true. Let me ask you something. Are you planning on going back to college so Biden can pay for it?
What a disaster. I mean, think about this, Jeffrey. He's come out with a plan that's going to generally relieve $10,000 of debt per student, some that had Pell Grants up to 20. And his classification on income is individuals earning less than 125 grand or couples earning 250,000. It might have had some meaningful teeth if the numbers were reduced to people making less than like the American average, like $55,000. But what he's done here, here's the thing, folks. People think this debt just goes away. No, it does not go away. Somebody ends up paying for this debt forgiveness, And you know who that person is? That's right.
Yes.
It's the American taxpayer. And think about this for a minute. All the middle class people who decided they didn't want to go to college, they're going to pay for this.
Yep.
All of you responsible people out there that took out student loans and lived frugally and paid them back, how do you feel about this?
It's not the same amount, but I took out loans for college and grad school, and I got it, and it was big money. And I got my first job, it was $9,000 a year. Okay. But I paid it. I cut back on this, I cut back on that, but I paid it. It was my obligation. And along with all the other stuff, they're teaching kids you don't have to meet your obligations.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And to make matters worse, you've got almost every Republican against this idea. A lot of Democrats are against it. The crazy part is you had some of the progressive left say he didn't go far enough. He should have forgiven $50,000 worth of debt. And I mean, listen, at the end of the day, Jeffrey, the Biden administration touted that bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, and in that bill, supposedly over 10 years, we're supposed to take in $750 billion in revenue, and we're going to spend $450, so that we're going to have a $300 billion reduction in the deficit. Biden has just erased that with this. This is going to add to the deficit. Conservative estimates say $300 billion. It could go much higher than that, depending upon how things play themselves out. So no, this was a terrible idea, and I think it's a political risk. And yes, he kept a campaign promise. He did campaign on this, but at the end of the day, it's bad policy, and he never should have done this. And well, I don't know if it can be challenged in court.
Last night, Cori Bush, who is a member of the squad, tweeted out that Biden's plan is racist. And I said I tweeted back, I said, is everything racist? I said, if I'm sitting next to a black guy on the train, okay, and I release some methane, am I doing that because I'm a racist? I mean, everything can't be racist.
It just goes to show, Jeffrey, how far out of touch Bush and the far left-wing radical squad is. I mean, look, Americans are pretty good about a sense of what's right and what's wrong. There is nothing right about this. There's a concept in America, if you borrow money, you pay it back. This is nothing more than a racket for the education system. Bear in mind, the universities have been corrupted by the Democrats. So what are they doing? They want to forgive debt. Somebody's got to pay for that debt. Harvard's sitting out here, what, 30, 40, $50 billion endowment? Let Harvard pay for it. Okay. Don't have the American taxpayers subsidize education for wealthy, upper middle income, and wealthy kids. I mean, this just smacks of the wrong thing to do. And think about this, Jeffrey, how the political parties have shifted. Democrats are now the party of the wealthy, the party of what I call the uppity, snooty, just people that are looked down on conservatives, these liberals. I mean, it's disgusting.
And the thing is, when they do stuff like that, the prices on college go up.
Of course, because if the colleges know the debt's going to be forgiven, they're going to raise their prices, and it's an endless cycle of more debt. Jeffrey, there's $1.7 trillion of total student debt. Now, as I've said on earlier shows, up until this action, Biden had forgiven $32 billion. Most of that I didn't have a problem with, was because it was from people who were defrauded, these colleges that online that went out of business. Okay, there's probably a reasonableness standard there. And again, if the burden was something like, middle income, lower income Americans below $50,000, I could grudgingly think about supporting something like that. But when you're forgiving student debt for people making $100,000, $125,000, that is just insane. It's an insult to people who were prudent and paid back their student loans. It's an insult to people that never took out their student loans. And it's an insult to Americans who decided they weren't going to go to college. They were going to apply for a trade elsewhere. And now the American public is stuck paying this bill. It's bad policy, political pandering at the worst. And it's just another example of how the Biden administration, they screw up everything.
Well, Senator Schumer yesterday tweeted out how great this thing is. And I tweeted him back and said, so if I buy a Ferrari and find out I can't pay for it, is the government going to help me pay for the loan?
Right. No, of course
Not that I want a Ferrari. I'd rather get a bigger television, but it's not the government's job.
It's not the government's job. And when you go back to Cori Bush for a minute, I don't know what her basis would be. Again, anytime anything doesn't go in the ultra left progressive way, they call you a racist. They say to bosses, I mean, call Joe Biden a racist for doing this. That is just beyond. That's even laughable for Democrats. I think the policy's bad. A lot of Democrats think it's bad policy. Most Republicans think it's bad policy. It will add to the inflation problems that we have. Now, Joseph Stiglitz, a far left-wing radical economist, he goes, oh, this will be good because people won't have to pay back student debt. They can spend more. Oh, my God, just what we need when the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell have been raising interest rates to try to slow down demand. Jeffrey, this is bad policy. And again, it goes like everything else. You want more of something, don't tax it. They limit the pipeline drilling. They allow 2 million people to come across the border a year from Mexico. Prices for food, rents, even oil. Oil came down, from 125 down to 80s. Now it's trading around $90, $92 a barrel. But again, it's still higher than it was when Trump was in office. It's almost double. So, all these policies. Look at the Afghan withdrawal. That was a debacle, and that really started the decline in Biden's polling. So, in my opinion, and again, I'm not trying to be, partisan, but every policy this guy touches turns to stone. He's literally that bad.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't care if I'm political or not. I lean one way, and the thing is that he's totally out of touch with the people. And that's what makes him unpopular. Yes, Afghan was lousy. And if you look at his polling, as soon as the Afghan take, whatever you call it, happened, his polling numbers went down. And the reason why they're staying down is you get the feeling he doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion for a long time, Jeffrey, has been that Susan Rice and Ron Klain, his chief of staff, are really calling the shots. A lot of people have said, no, Obama's the one calling the shots. I'm not buying that because, Jason Furman, Obama's chief economist, he came out and said this policy is terrible. We should
Obama trashed it yesterday.
I didn't hear. Former President Obama didn't like the idea of the student loan forgiveness. Okay, one of the few times I agree with Barack Obama. He's right about that. So Joe Biden, he's a slave to the far left-wing radicals in his party. And it's like anyone else. He tries to meet them halfway. The only thing I can say about Biden, again, for you people that voted for him, he promised during the campaign he would do this. He's doing what he said he would do. So for everybody who's complaining about it, I'll give him a pass on that because he did say he was going to do it. And you can't come. People voted for it. Now we're going to feel the inflationary effects of it.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of our politicians. When people say they're going to do something, they go, nah, he's not going to really do that.
I believe him.
And they go ahead and do it. But speaking about overspending, did you hear about the new Iran deal that they're talking about that's about to be signed? They're giving Iran $1 trillion.
I don't know what the final number is going to be. This is insanity. Again, talk about everything that could possibly go wrong. You have to sit here wondering, who is Biden representing? The vast majority of the American public do not want an Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the
When this
Israelis
is,
don't want it. The Saudis don't.
that's it.
This is insanity on steroids, Jeffrey.
Yes. And when the first one was being done, I was working for a website called Iran Truth. And really, it was reporting on the negotiations. And first of all, there are about 15 or 16 things they told us that ain't happening. Like they said, anytime, anywhere inspections. No. As a matter of fact, the only one that they do inspections of, Iran does the self-inspection. They do the inspections by themselves. Okay. And I got some friends who went to Catholic school, and they say the nuns told them, if you inspect yourself, they're going to go blind. I don't know what that means, but that's what they say. When they said that they release what they did before, they never did. Okay. John Kerry promised the Congress, okay, he was interviewed about this, that it doesn't mean that they will get more freedom on doing missiles. That didn't happen. As a matter of fact, they got tons more. Okay, so almost everything we were told, was a lie. And actually, I follow closely. I don't know, Matt Lee of the Associated Press. He was coming out with all these breaking stories that no one would tell us. And to me, if they're going to do it, tell us about it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, Jeffrey, on the surface, who in their right mind believes that this is going to be successful? I mean, bribing the Iranians. Look, here's my sort of in the air. I go with what the Israelis believe, because you and I both know the Israelis have the ability to take out those facilities. No one's ever going to say it, but we know that to be factual. I just can't for the life of me figure out what's in it for us. What's in it for the Europeans? I mean, the Iranians are going to march to their own tune. This ranks up there among, I don't know. I mean,
this is Chamberlain.
It's really bad. It is Neville Chamberlain. You're exactly right.
You know what, though? Usually treaties have to be approved by 60% of the Senate. They're not doing it as a treaty. Once again, they're doing it as an executive agreement.
You're exactly right. And that agreement can be undone, just like how Trump undid it. If you have a Republican president elected in 2024, they can undo this. But again, by then the damage will already be done. They're going to send them a boatload of money. They're basically bribing the Iranians, and the Iranians are going to stick it, up to us anyhow. This is a bad deal. It shouldn't be done. Trump was right. It's just, it makes your skin crawl, because it's just
last time all the money they gave him was used for terrorism.
And it'll be done again. There's no question about it.
And media, the way they're reporting is, well, Israel is upset. Yes, Israel is upset. Saudi Arabia is upset. All the Sunni nations are upset because Iran wants to be the leader of the Muslim world.
Right.
And Sunni Shia, it's they're fighting over the same religion.
Yeah.
Well, little differences, but I just don't understand it.
Nothing to be gained here. It's bad policy, and it's just regrettable that we're moving forward on this.
Now, I've been reading a lot saying that there might be a food crisis coming. Okay, so I've been ordering a lot of extra pizza. Do you think it's going to happen in the United States?
We already have a food crisis in this country. Jeffrey, if you look at the bottom third of Americans, the percentage of people who are going to food banks because they can't afford food is dramatically higher. When gasoline peaked a couple months ago, I mean, it was even worse. But you have to say, here's the interesting situation you have now. And we have roughly 4 million jobs available beyond the labor force, meaning we have like 9 million job openings right now, and we have 5 million people who are not employed. Okay, I can't connect those dots. I'm struggling with that. But you do have roughly 25, 30 was a little high, 25% of Americans that when you add up all your costs, they do have a hard time meeting all their obligations. So what are a lot of them doing? They're going to food banks. So yes, there's already an issue in this country, and you can better believe, Jeffrey, if there's an issue in this country already, and you're not going to hear from the media, they don't want to report this stuff because they don't want Biden to look bad. But it is out there. We see it everywhere. And if it's bad in this country, you know it's bad in other countries. Now, fortunately, grain shipments out of Ukraine started a couple weeks ago and have continued. That will help the situation. But, you know, all you got to do is look at the demand from these food banks, families with children. I mean, the media is not telling you about it, but there is a problem with it out there right now.
Is the mozzarella cheese good? Because then I don't have to buy all those pizzas.
You can throw the mozzarella cheese on the pizzas because they're making the pizza smaller and not putting as much on it. So you're gonna sort of make your own.
Is that what they're doing?
Of course.
So what else is hot this today?
You know, I got one topic I want to talk to you about. A late breaking sort of the trust in the FBI and the Justice Department. You know, Jeffrey, right now, 46% of Americans believe the Justice Department and the FBI has become a political arm. That's a bad number. And over 50% of Americans don't trust the Justice Department and the FBI to be impartial. I mean, we can't have that lack of trust in two institutions like the FBI and the Justice Department. And you're seeing whistleblowers come forth. It's going to be really interesting to see where this goes because, again, there's so much information being hidden from us. You know, the redacted affidavit that the judge is reviewing.
The real one, not the one I showed.
That's right, the real one. If people could see what's in the real affidavit, I think that would open the curtain to, hey, what's going on? Americans are pretty fair people. But a lot of them are, other than the far left-wing radicals, of course, who they want Trump hung, and the far right-wingers who he's saying Trump. But the 70% of Americans in the middle are all asking, whether you're a center left or center right or right in the middle, are saying, why did this happen? What was it so serious that Trump's house was raided? And did they have to go full nuclear on it? If we could see,
why did they have to go through his wife's dresses?
All that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I think if the affidavit is, and eventually it's going to come out. If it was revealed, that would open up some questions. I don't believe this stuff that the FBI is saying about sources and methods and people would be at risk. I'm not buying that story. Again, we had Russia collusion hoax. We had an impeachment over Trump. We had a second impeachment. I mean, first one was over a phone call. The second was over January 6th. They've tried to get this guy every which way to Sunday, and it hasn't worked. And again, the American people are saying if they could do it to Trump, they could do it from anyone. I want full disclosure. I'd like to see an unredacted version.
You know, to me, it's really disappointing because I always thought that the FBI was the premier law enforcement agency in the world.
Yeah.
And now they're full of baloney. It's
concern.
You know, and the DOJ, you know, I've never been really into them, but certainly the last couple of left-wing ones have been awful, have been biased. They're not supposed to be biased.
Right.
And that's the whole thing.
Right.
You're supposed to feel that they're going to do the law, and it doesn't matter who they kill, who they don't. It's going to be what the law says.
Spot on.
And they're not doing that.
Yep.
And neither is the FBI.
Well, let's hope we can get some transparency here, and that at the end of the day, we can see what really happened here. Why did they do this?
We're still waiting for Durham and what do you call it? And Russiagate.
Yeah, I wouldn't lose too much sleep on that. I mean, we're still waiting. What does that tell you?
That tells me by the time it comes out, I'll have hair.
Rest his soul, Rush Limbaugh told us before he passed away, he said, you're never going to see the light on the Durham thing. And again, like he was most of the time, Rush was right.
He certainly was. So, Mark, we have to wrap up.
Okay, Jeffrey, it's been great. I love having you host today.
It's Thursday, so there's no Schaftlein report tomorrow. But starting Monday, we're going to be back. Not me, because I'm off on Mondays. But look forward to it. I'm sure there's going to a lot happen during the weekend, and there'll be a lot more straight right down the middle what's happening in the world today. So make sure you come back on Monday. And in between, come to lidblog.com because I write some pretty good stuff once in a while. At least my wife likes it.
Yes, you do. LidBlog's a very good site, Jeffrey. And Jeffrey, thank you again for hosting today. Much appreciated. I'm happy to have been able to join you today.
My pleasure. Folks, have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. And I'll be watching on Monday.
See you on Monday, folks.